As someone who grew up playing House of the Dead in the arcade near my house, I was absolutely over the moon when House of the Dead Remake was announced for the Nintendo Switch, especially since it's a genre that is more dead than the zombies you'll encounter. Sega even lost the original source code, meaning the entire game had to be rebuilt from scratch. Sure, the graphics didn't look amazing, perhaps fittingly, and it doesn't have actual light gun support, but I still couldn't wait to get my hands on it, especially with the new modes exclusive to this version. And now that it's here, have Megapixel done this arcade classic justice on the Nintendo Switch, or is it dead on arrival? That's what I'm here to answer in Game Explain's review of House of the Dead Remake on the Nintendo Switch. For the uninitiated, House of the Dead Remake is a short, on-rails light gun shooter where you explore a creepy mansion and encounter all kinds of disgusting enemies, from zombies, weird bat dog-looking things, and these chainsaw-wielding monstrosities. Of course, the Switch version lacks the physical light gun element, but otherwise seems to be a faithful adaptation of the original, with the levels accurately recreated and all the enemies in their original spots. The frequent branching paths are a standout feature, and it's great being able to experiment without worrying about how many quarters or euros I have left in my pocket. The addictive gameplay loop of blowing off zombies' heads all the while trying to perfect your score is here in full force, and I found myself coming back for just one more run to try out that alternate path I missed, or aiming for a higher score than my last successful run. The short 30-minute or so playthroughs make it easy to hop right back in for another play, and I was happy with being able to have this classic in the palm of my hands, flaws and all. Gone are the days of throwing quarters into a machine to beat it. House of the Dead Remake instead gives you 10 credits or lives to start with, each affording you 3 hit points. Once all 10 of your credits are gone, you can trade in 5,000 points from your current score to respawn, making it relatively easy to beat the game, but at the cost of your high score. So all you high score chasers out there will want to avoid having to cash in your points for more tries, while also learning the enemy placements, best paths, and which barrels house the golden frogs. The game offers 2 modes, Original and Horde. The Original mode is a faithful recreation of the classic House of the Dead, with the exact same story, bosses and enemies. However, you do have 4 difficulty options to choose from, including Easy, Normal and Hard. The difference between these is how much damage enemies deal to you. Arcade mode is the final and hardest difficulty. In addition, you can choose from 2 scoring modes, Modern and Classic, with Classic being true to the arcade original, which only awards you points for knocking off limbs and killing blows, whereas Modern adds in score multipliers for kills while also awarding points for every single shot you land. In addition, in the Modern scoring mode you can choose which agent you want to start with. And I love the Modern scoring system. It gives the game a more frantic feeling, as I emptied multiple shots into every single last inch of a zombie to score as many points as possible. You can choose to be less accurate in this mode, which to some people might be a bonus, as the gyro aiming, while accurate, will never beat the feel of an actual light gun. Horde mode has the same options as original mode, but throws any balance out the window and lumps easily double, sometimes triple the number of enemies at you at any given time. I didn't care for this mode all too much. There was simply way too much going on, so I mostly stuck to the original mode. As you might expect, you can play with a friend too, in either cooperative and competitive modes. In competitive you compete for points, and in cooperative you share points. This was my favourite way to experience the game, calling out which enemy to shoot first and learning the optimal strategies to get a new high score. Of course you can always just play 2-player cooperative mode by yourself too, and I found it quite fun playing dual wielding both guns. Maybe it should have been an official option. But we have to address the elephant in the room, the lack of official light gun support. And this has always been a struggle for home ports of arcade light gun games to replicate, with some offering expensive accessory kits to mimic the arcade light gun field, with others relying on built-in hardware, like the Wii Remote's pointer, which actually worked quite well, especially when paired with a light gun shell. For better or worse, House of the Dead on the Switch doesn't support any kind of light gun accessory, and relies entirely on the Switch's gyro or stick controls to control the pointer, depending on your preference. Thankfully, the gyro aiming works quite well, offering a level of precision and fun that I enjoy, even if it's not quite one-to-one. After a few runs, I was blowing zombies' heads off with ease. But like any gyro-reliant game, the cursor will drift over time, requiring you to recalibrate it with a quick press of the Y button. It's not too distracting, though I did have to do it often. I eventually settled into a rhythm of recentering while reloading. Fortunately, you can play this with either 1 or 2 Joy-Cons if you want, with the latter option allowing you to use one Joy-Con exclusively to aim, and the other being used for everything else, like shooting and reloading, which arguably is better, as your aim will never be thrown off by spamming the shoot or reload buttons. As for the options to use the analog stick for aiming, well, I didn't like it at all. This type of game just doesn't work using an analog stick to drag a cursor around, but hey, It's there for people that really hate gyro controls. Thankfully you actually can use both at once, which strikes a decent balance, though I still preferred using purely gyro aiming. Light gun games are designed pretty cheekily. They want you to shell out as much money as possible after all, so I needed the speed of the gyro aiming to have any chance of beating the game. You can play with a pro controller too, though I wouldn't recommend it as using gyro to aim with a two-handed controller felt awkward and not especially great for my wrists. Plus holding a Joy-Con kinda feels like a little light gun. The same is true when using a gyro in handheld mode, as you have to move the entire system to aim. The game is just begging for touch controls here. Yes, I was one of the only people who played Touch of the Dead on the DS, and I would love to see the developers implement touchscreen controls in a future update. Regrettably, the HD rumble doesn't add much to the experience. The feedback on reloading and landing a shot felt almost indistinguishable, so I turned it off after testing it out. As mentioned, everything has been remade from scratch, with new character models and overall better effects. The game does technically look better, but it's still really ugly, and arguably loses part of the charm that the original's extremely dated appearance had. There's pop-in galore, the blood looks like jelly, the enemy skins resemble clay, and don't get me started on the hair. It has zero redeeming qualities. Just look at the opening cutscene. Yeah, it doesn't give off a good first impression. Some of the textures are so bad that I don't have any games in recent memory to use as a comparison. The enemy models look okay overall, but there's a strange shine over all of them, giving them an extremely fake looking appearance. Now, surprisingly, there are two graphical modes to choose from. I don't have the official specs, but performance mode seems to run at a higher 60 frames per second. I found it impossible to play without performance mode turned on, as it felt like my cursor was moving through mud, and it was significantly harder to shoot things accurately. In non-performance mode, the game does have some better effects, including lighting, but it's extremely bloomy, making it a bit annoying to look at when light sources like torches are on the screen. While performance mode certainly runs at a higher frame rate, both modes heavily suffer from frame drops, stutters and freezing, which overall hurt the experience a lot. Look, I can forgive poor graphics if the frame rate is solid, but when both are subpar there aren't many excuses. A game like this needs a solid frame rate, and unfortunately it just isn't stable. The voice acting has also been re-recorded, but it retains the same so bad it's good charm as the original.
Sophie!
You must stop, Kyrian, or else something terrible will happen.
It's slightly less over the top compared to the arcade version, but I was still entertained by how wonderfully bad it is, and I mean that in the best way possible. At the end of the day, I'm still mostly happy that I have House of the Dead on the Switch, as I still had plenty of fun playing through it despite its issues. I appreciate Megapixel's effort in reviving the genre and showing some love for this amazing classic game, though the poor performance combined with terrible updated graphics left me disappointed. And of course, while I would have loved proper light gun support, I also totally get that's not a reasonable expectation, and the gyro controls serve as a decent replacement. Ultimately, I'm mixed on House of the Dead Remake. My love and nostalgia for the game allowed me to have a good time playing the remake, especially with two players, but I was left hoping for something better and closer to the arcade original. There we have GameXplain's review for House of the Dead Remake on the Nintendo Switch. I would love to know what you think of the game. Check out the videos on the right for more great content, and you may as well subscribe while you're at it. I really appreciate your time, and I'll see you all on the next video.